Mark's report contains the footage of the aftermath of a chemical weapons attack.
For nearly 25 years, one man has dominated everything in Syria. Bashar al Assad was the London-trained eye doctor who became one of the world's most ruthless dictators. The soft voice belied the brutality of the man and the regime he inherited from his father. The story of Syria under Assad gives the context for so much beyond. Chemical weapons and the red lines crossed. ISIS and their caliphate, a migration flow across Europe, Iran and their influence in the region. When Assad took power in 2000, there was a wind of change and hope.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here?
I will.
Opening up, engaging with the West, change maybe from the ruthlessness of his father.
He had a different trajectory for his life, slightly surprisingly came into the position to rule, but by all accounts, he knew exactly what he was doing when he got the chance, and he simply followed. It's not unreasonable to have tried in Western states to say, should you become the leader, here are opportunities for democratic rule. But the truth is, people do not relinquish power because they fear that if they lose power, it will end their lives.
But when protests swept through the Middle East, people demanding change from Egypt to Tunisia, in Syria, Assad couldn't tolerate it. The protesters had thought that they could do what others had, to topple their tyrant. But with his notorious secret police and compliant generals, he cracked down. A peaceful protest morphed into the region's longest civil war. America arming the moderate opposition and drawing red lines.
A red line for us is we start seeing a whole bunch of chemical weapons moving around or being utilized.
For a time, the Western powers seemed united against Assad, and to stop him too, they gathered in Geneva in 2012.
We consider it to be of key importance that there is no attempt in the document to impose upon the Syrian side any kind of transitional process.
He had one powerful supporter, Russia, and there was a symbiosis to the Putin-Assad relationship. Russia helped him and maintained its strategic military bases. For Iran, too, helping Assad allowed dots to be joined, an Iranian arc of influence which curved through the Middle East. 2013 could have been a turning point. These horrific images from the Damascus suburb of Ghouta shocked the world. Assad used sarin gas against his own people. The UN said it was the worst chemical attack in a quarter of a century. Obama's red line crossed. Britain brought a resolution to the Security Council to authorize the use of force in Syria. There wasn't agreement. Stung by disastrous interventions in Iraq and in Libya, the Western calculation for Syria was, in the end, just to let it play out.
Chemical weapons, for me, for the Assad regime, are absolutely synonymous with its evil. I've always said that I thought Assad remained in power because he used chemical weapons and because the West didn't really punish him for it.
The war continued, now a proxy war between the West and Russia, Iran, China too. A great power struggle for regional influence playing out as a country was destroyed. It was from Syria that the world first saw the brutality of ISIS, the hostages, the beheadings, the caliphate, terrorism exported, another extremism which tried to replace Assad's. Millions streamed out of the country, prompting Europe's biggest migration challenge since World War II. Syria's war and the West's choice not to intervene was now profoundly impacting politics in nations across Europe. Far-right parties thriving as liberal governments did what they thought was the right thing, to let refugees in. In 2017, Assad did it again, another chemical attack. This time it was Donald Trump in the White House, and with British and French support, he authorized airstrikes. A message, but not a turning point. Assad remained in power, and over the subsequent years, the resistance movement would be cornered into small pockets of his reclaimed country. By 2023, a remarkable resurgence and resilience drew him back into the fold. No longer the outcast in the Middle East, the reception for him at the Arab League meeting was warm, an acceptance that he wasn't going anywhere. And yet, a year later, it is all over. After well over a decade, in the end, it took just 12 days, a byproduct of the tumultuous events in the region over the past year. All of this happened because of a confluence of moments. Israel's destruction of Assad's backer Hezbollah in Lebanon and bombing of Iranian forces in Syria. All of that flowing from the Gaza October 7th attacks. Then there is Ukraine bogging Russia down. It could no longer help its ally in Syria. And America's political vacuum too, between one president and the next. It was space to make a play.
What happens in Syria doesn't stay in Syria. And so the potential prospect of a resolution being around the corner is an enormous hope. At the same time, with everything up in the air, the potential for Syria to go down a Libya-like path, potentially holds a great deal of challenges and threats for the rest of the region going forward. So again, the need for diplomacy to get started at 100 miles an hour right now is absolutely urgent.
Donald Trump is not yet president, but he is now the lead player on the world stage with a style few can predict. In Paris, as Syria unfolded, he said it wasn't America's problem, but then within 24 hours he was drawing the lines that link the geopolitics. And so the long war is over. A dictatorial dynasty has gone, and with it, regional power has shifted profoundly. What matters now is what follows, how Israel, Turkey, Iran, Russia, and Trump's America respond. An inflection point indeed. Mark Stone, Sky News in Washington.